Okay, well, hi, I'm David Boyer, and here's some poetry. She holds the umbrella and smiles spring. Before dawn, the sparrow and I repeating the mantra. In the darkened window, my ghost leaves fall. The world a blossom, I make up a song for my dog. The scent of old books, overpacked for the afterlife. The sudden way spring papers, it all works out. So small, it lives off the clicks of insect legs. Scent of ripe apples when I would practice how to fly. Cricket half of a smaller infinity. Here, amidst tulips, untidy deaths. Because sleep is close to death, I'm an I am. The small hours, like crystals into birdsong. It's a hard question to ask, and I've been writing for such a long time. But so many things inspire me, really. And, sometimes it's just watching a bug crawl around on the ground. And sometimes, just this morning, my wife and I were taking a walk, and it was just about dawn. And we get to one part of the walk, and the sky is this beautiful orange with the sun just starting to come up. And the blue of the water is there, and then just a little sliver of moon. And it was just beautiful. And, that exact image might not make it into a poem, but sometimes something like that, you get the sensation of that into a poem, or part of that goes into a poem. So, anything sort of like that, really. And I'd also say, I guess, good writing, good music is something that really I find very inspiring. You want to kind of reach that same place. You want to share that sensation you get when great music, great art touches you. Well, I've never been really good about talking about what a poem is about. And maybe part of that is because, like, a lot of these are really sort of these condensed inner experiences, ideas and images that have been playing around in my mind, churning around in my head for such a long time. So it's really kind of hard to say in a few words what the poem is about, in a way, because sometimes these things, they're traveling around inside of you for years and years and years, and you work on them, and it just condenses into this, little crystal. And it's really hard to sort of say, to put into words what it's about. And part of that also, I think, is that when a poem is out there, it kind of belongs to the world at that point. And me saying, well, it's about A, I don't want to say it's about A, and then you say, well, it's about B, C, and D. And, that's totally valid. I don't want to take that away from anybody. So I don't know if that's a roundabout way of avoiding the question, but I guess that's kind of what I'd say, really. Well, yeah, I guess I answered that a little bit before, but I would say, every now and then a poem will sort of jump out of your head, fully formed, ready to go. But for the most part, you have like a little spark, a little idea, an image, a feeling. And, you write it down and you rewrite it, and you do that for, 5 to 5,000 times. And, with any luck, it'll snap into a poem. It'll be good to go. It'll fly away. But yeah, you kind of have to go through that dark forest. You have to just work at it. You have to keep writing and rewriting, like maybe like sculpting something from clay, Maybe that's a good image for it. would say be careful when you're listening to people giving advice about poetry. I would say take it with a grain of salt, because you gotta just go inside yourself, that little secret room, and you gotta trust what's in there, and you have to have a sense of play. And one of the things that I've heard about writing that I think is one of the most important things is don't be afraid of bad writing. Get down a line that sounds terrible, that sounds corny, that is just awful, that you'd never show to anybody else. Get that line down and work at it and coax the magic out of it, because, it's better to have some terrible line to work with than have a blank page. I would say, first off, just start with an open mind. Don't go in with too many preconceived notions. Don't worry about if it doesn't make sense right away, or if you can't figure it out logically. Sometimes you got to kind of live with it. You got to let it into yourself and just give it a home for a little bit. I always think about when I was reading John Ashbery, because he's supposed to be one of the greats, and I just couldn't make head or tail out of him for the longest time. And, I just kept going at it because there was something that drew me to him. And I kept reading and reading him. And one day it kind of clicked. And I can't say that I perfectly understand his poetry now, don't get me wrong. But right now, when I read him, it's like listening to a good friend rather than struggling with one of the great poets. So that's what I would say. Just, take your time, let it wash over you, let it into yourself, and just try to experience it with your whole body. Try to listen and try to just be patient, because eventually it'll open up. And if not, there's plenty of other poems out there to see. I guess sometimes just, I subscribe to some different poetry journals, and sometimes you'll find one in there that will just jump out at you, and then you'll look into that poet. And in my jogs in the morning, I'll listen to poetry podcasts, and again, sometimes somebody will just really strike you with a poem they read, or just an idea that they have when they're talking, and you'll look them up. But yeah, just general sort of exploration, I guess, I'm sure. I'm going to also answer and not answer that question, if that's okay. But I would say one person who really changed my mind about what was possible in poetry would be Gertrude Stein. As well as John Ashbery, as well as thousands of other ones I could talk about. But if you haven't read Tender Buttons, check that out. It will drive you nuts, but it's an incredible work unlike anything else out there, before or since. And I would say if you're interested in haiku and the short poem and what that can do and what that can sound like, and want to read some great stuff that pushes boundaries online, check out Bones, check out Islet Poetry, check out Helio Sparrow, and I'm happy to give you those links if you want to post them in the notes. But yeah, and I would just say keep exploring.